Hi guys, my name is Mrs. Beltz and I am so excited because I get to work on math with you today. So here is what we are going to talk about. Today we are going to represent the value of the digit in whole numbers through 1 billion and decimals to the hundredths using expanded notation and numerals. How are we going to do that? Well, we are going to review what expanded form and expanded notation are. We are going to practice representing numbers with place value discs, and we are going to practice writing numbers in expanded form and expanded notation. I'm going to move my camera so we can talk about the why. Why? Well, it's important to understand the value of each digit that is used to make a number. So we are going to go ahead and get started. Some important vocabulary. There's two really important vocabulary that we need to talk about. The first one is expanded form. The second one is expanded notation. Now, these two do seem very similar. They both have the word expanded in them, but they are a little bit different. So let's look at expanded form first. The number that we are given is 294. Now, expanded form is an expression showing the specific place value of each digit. So I have 200. So if I counted by 100, 100, 200, now I have my value right here of 200. Plus 9 tens. Well, if I counted by 10, 9 times, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. There's my 90. Plus 4. So if I counted by 1, 4 times, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's my 4. Now, expanded notation is similar, but it is a little bit different. So expanded notation is an expression showing the specific place value of each digit by multiplying each digit by its place value. Now, I know the word place value is in there a lot, so what does that actually mean? So let's look at our example of 294 again. I have the number 2, and it is in the hundreds place. So I'm going to say 2 times 100, because I have 2 in the hundreds place. So 2 times 100 plus 9 is in the tens place, so 9 times 10 plus 4 times 1 because it is in the ones place. So today what we're going to do is I'm going to look at a couple of different numbers, and we are going to use place value discs and a place value chart to help us make the number in expanded form and in expanded notation. Are you excited? Are you ready? Here we go. So our first example we're going to look at is this number. The way that we read this number is 23 and, because remember a decimal says and, 4 tenths. My question to you is, what would the expanded form be for this number? So before I click to the next slide, I want you to think about that. What would the number 23 and 4 tenths look like in expanded form? All right, let's see if you are correct. So I'm going to put it in a place value chart first. So I have 2 tens, 3 ones, my decimal point, which is super important, 4 tenths. And then I'm going to use place value discs to represent this number. So I'm going to move my camera out of the way so that I can actually do that. So a place value disc is a math tool, and it will be a shape. I'm using a rectangle, but a lot of times you'll see it as a circle, which is why it's called a disc. And inside of it, it actually says the place value. So I had 2 tens, so I have 1, 2. There's my 2 tens. I have 3 ones. 1, 2, 3. So I have 3 of them. My decimal doesn't have to have any, but just remember a decimal separates a whole number from a part of a number. And then I have my tenths, and I have 4 of those. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I wanted to model or represent my number in place value discs, this is what it would look like. I'm going to use these place value discs to help me with expanded form. So again, I want you to think about, what would this number look like expanded form? All right, let's see if you're correct. So with the place value discs, we're able to see the amount in each place. So how can we use that to help us with expanded form? Well, I know that I have 2 tens. So if I count by tens, 10, 20. Look, there's my 20. plus my ones. I have 3 ones. I'm going to count by ones. 1, 2, 3. Well, it's a value of 3, so there's my 3. Plus my tenths. I have 4 of them, so 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10. And when I write 4/10, I put 0 point or decimal 4. The 4 is in the tenths place, so this is how you would read 4/10. Now this is expanded form, but we're going to use this to help us with expanded notation. So I want you to think back to what our vocabulary looked like, and expanded notation looked a little bit different. With expanded notation, I'm going to use the numbers that are in my place value chart. I'm going to multiply that times my place value. So I'm going to give you 10 seconds, and I want you to think about what it would look like before I go to the next screen. Okay, are you ready? Let's see if you got it right. So here is what it's going to look like. Let's explain why. So I'm going to use my place value discs and my place value chart to help me. I'm going to use my expanded form to also help me. So I have 2 10s. There's my 2 10s. So I'm going to use an open parenthesis. I'm going to write my 2 times my place, which is the tens place. So I'm going to write 10, close the parenthesis, plus, and then I go to my next place value. So then I'm going to use my 3, because I have 3 of them. So there's my 3, 1, 2, 3, times my ones place. So in my place value chart and also my place value discs, I see that I'm using the ones place. So there's my 1. Close parenthesis, plus, move to my next place. So there are 4. So I'm going to use that digit to help me. So I'm going to open parenthesis, 4 times, and I'm going to do my place. Well, my place is the tenths place, and whenever I have to do tenths, I have to write it as a decimal. You can write it as a fraction, but for now, we're going to write it as a decimal. And the way you write it as a decimal is 0.1. And then you close parentheses. Now, if I was to actually multiply all of these numbers together, 2 times 10 equals 20, 3 times 1 equals 3, 4 times 1/10 equals 4/10. If I add all of these together, I do get back up to my 23 and 4/10. So we were able to look at a place value chart, place value discs, expanded form, and then expanded notation. So let's try it again with the number that's a little bit bigger. Here is the number we are going to look at, and my question I have is what would be the expanded form for this number? So let's read this number first. So if I have 312, I'm going to read that as 312. My decimal says and then 87 is 87. My 7 is in the hundredths place. It's very important that you add that THS at the end of it because it's letting us know that it is in the decimal side and not the whole number side. So this number is 312 and 87 hundredths. You can act like you're a snake. So we're going to see what this looks like in a place value chart and again with our place value discs. So let's do that. So this one has way more place value discs because the number had more digits, which is fine. So in my place value chart, I have a 3 in the hundreds place, a 1 in the tens place, a 2 in the ones place. I have my decimal because it's still super duper important. I have an 8 in the tenths place and a 7 in the hundredths place. Now I'm going to use place value discs to represent this number. So I said I had to have 3 hundreds. Well, here they are, 1, 2, 3. There's my 3 hundreds. I needed 110. There's my 110. I needed 2 ones, 1, 2. There they are. Now I have 8 tenths. So I needed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are my 8 tenths. And I needed 7 hundredths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm able to use my place value discs to help me with a representation of my number. It gives me a model, a visual, something I'm actually able to see so I can see what all I'm having to do. Now I'm going to ask the same exact question that I asked last time. Using your place value chart and your place value discs, how could you write this number in expanded form? So I want you to think about it for 10 seconds. And then I'm going to go to the next slide. So here are your 10 seconds. What would it look like in expanded form? Okay, let's see how it looks. And I'm going to move my camera over here, and I'm going to hide this so we can actually see. So I still have my place value chart. I still have my place value discs. They're all still there. But I want to know, what do it look like for expanded form? Well, I know I have 300. So if I counted by hundreds, 100, 200, 300, I should have 300. And look, it's right there. Plus 110. Well, if I count by tens one time, 10. There it is right there. Plus 2 ones. I'm going to count by ones 2 times. 1, 2. There's my 2. Plus 8 tenths. 1 tenth, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths, 5 tenths, 6 tenths, 7 tenths, 8 tenths. So there are my 8 tenths. Plus 7 hundredths. 1 hundredth, 2 hundredths, 3 hundredths, 4 hundredths, 5 hundredths, 6 hundredths, 7 hundredths. And this is how you would write 7 hundredths. Now we are going to use this information and we are going to make expanded notation. Now remember, expanded notation is a little bit different from expanded form. We are going to use the number that is in the place value chart, or the digit that's in the place value chart, I'm sorry, and we're going to multiply it times the actual place value. So before I move, I want you to start thinking about that. How would this look and how is it different? So I'm going to give you 10 seconds to think about that. How is it different? All right, let's look at how it's different. I got to move my camera again. So let's put it way over here. Okay, so I'm going to look at my place value chart. I still have the same number. I still have all of my place value discs representing my number. I still have my expanded form. Now I'm going to look at the expanded notation. So when I do that, and I'm going to click, oops, I'm sorry. So I have 300. So I have 3 times 100. And if I scroll down, that is exactly what I see at the bottom of my screen. 3 times 100 plus 1 times 10 because it's in the tens place. Well, if I scroll down, that's what I see. 1 times 10 plus 2 times 1. I have 2 in the ones place. So if I scroll down and that bar goes away, go away bar. Maybe. That's exactly what I see. 2 times 1 plus, there's my decimal. This is important because now my decimal is going to be with my place value. So I have 8 tenths. So I'm still going to do my open parentheses. I'm going to say 8 times 1 tenth. Well, when I write 1 tenth, I'm going to put 0.1. And then my last one is my hundredth. So I'm going to say 7, open parentheses, 7 times 0.01 because that's how you would write 100th. Now it's going to be your turn. So in a minute, you're going to look at what I'd like you to do. Before we do that, let's review what we actually did today. So today we represented the value of the digit in whole numbers through the billions place and decimals to the hundredths using expanded notation and numerals. How did we do that? Well, we reviewed what expanded form and expanded notation are. We practiced representing numbers with place value discs. We practiced writing numbers in expanded form and in expanded notation. And we did that because it's very important for us to understand the value of each digit that is being used to make a number. Now it's going to be your turn. So in a minute, you're going to get a paper. Actually, it'll be a couple of pieces of paper. And you are going to do the same exact thing. You're going to represent numbers by, you're going to put them in a place value chart. You're going to use the place value discs and draw the model. You're going to write the number in expanded form. You're also going to write the number in expanded notation. So let's look at what I'm expecting you to do. So you are going to get a paper that looks similar to this. There are going to be 4 questions. Make sure you do all 4. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to put your name so that I can see whose work I'm looking at. You are going to write each number in the place value chart. You're going to model it with place value discs. You're going to then write the number in expanded form and also in expanded notation. Now, I know a lot of people, whenever you saw my example with the with the place value discs, I wrote out every single place value name. And I know that can take a lot of time. So instead, we're going to use this key so you don't have to write the name. So if you are wanting to write 100, you're just going to put an H. If it's for 10, you're going to put a T. If it's for 1, you're going to put an O. For tenths, you're going to put a big T and then THS. This lets me know you're talking about tenths. And then the last one is for hundredths, and we're going to put the big capital H and then THS at the end because that tells me it's for hundredths. So let's look at example for what I would like you to do. The number that we're going to use is 123 and 45 hundredths. So the first thing we're going to do is put it into a place value chart. So I'm going to put 123. My decimal is super important. 45 hundredths. Now, here is where you're going to actually draw your place value discs. Now remember, they can be a square, they can be a circle, but those are the only 2 shapes that you're going to pick. And then you're going to use this key to label them. So for time, I have already done mine. And here's what it will look like. So I have 100, and remember I just put the H for the 100. I have 2 tens, I just put the T for the tens. I have 3 ones, I put the O for my ones. I have 4 tenths, so I put the big capital T and then THS, and I have 4 of them. And then I have my hundredths, so I have 5 of those. I have my capital H and my THS, and I do have 5 of those. This is what it would look like with place value discs. Now I'm going to use this information and I'm going to do my expanded form. With expanded form, remember I'm writing the entire value. So I have 100, so I'm going to put 100 plus 2 tens. Well, if I count by tens, 2 times 10, 20. I'm going to write 20 plus the number of ones I have. So I have 3 of them, and I'm going to count by 1. 1, 2, 3. Plus, now I'm going to count by tenths. 1 tenth, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths. So if I do 4 tenths, I'm going to say 0 point or decimal 4 plus, oops, I hit the wrong button, plus my hundredths. So I have 100ths, 200ths, 300ths, 400ths, 500ths. So if I wanted to write 500ths, I'm going to say 0 point or 0 and 500ths. So 0.05 is how I would write that number. Now the final thing that you are going to do is you are going to write this number in expanded notation. Again, I can use this information from the place value chart, my place value discs, and my expanded form to help me with expanded notation. With expanded notation, remember I'm going to use parentheses to help separate everything. So I'm going to start with an open parenthesis, and I'm going to come back to my place value discs. I have 100. So I'm going to say 1 times 100 because it's in the hundreds place. I'm going to close my parenthesis, plus, and then I'm going to open my parenthesis and go to the next one. I have 2 tens. 1, 2. So I'm going to put 2 times, and it was my tens place, so I'm going to say 10. Plus, I have 3 ones. 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to say 3 times 1, because that is the ones place, plus Now I'm getting into the other side, so I'm going to do my decimals. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 4/10. So I'm going to do open parentheses 4 times 1/10. So I'm going to put 0.1, close my parenthesis, plus, now I'm going to look at my hundredths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So open parenthesis 5 times 0.01. And that's how I'd represent 1/100ths. Now, if I were to actually multiply all of these numbers, I would get back to my expanded form. So let's see if that actually works. 1 times 100 is 100. 2 times 10 is 20. 3 times 1 is 3. 4 times 1/10 is 4/10. 5 times 100th is 5/100ths. If I add 100 plus 20 plus 3 plus 4/10 plus 5/100ths, I will get all the way back up to 123 and 45/100ths. So this is what you are going to do on your page. You are going to have 4 problems. I know you are going to do amazing work, and I'm excited to see what all you can do. If you have any questions, please ask your teacher.